Hey everybody, this is Christic. Today I wanted to talk about the Shadowkeep nerfs that were missed, or pretty much stealth nerfs that maybe not anyone is talking about right now, and specifically to player power and coming from Season Opulence to Season of Undying or Shadowkeep. So the first nerf I want to talk about is the base cooldown reduction nerf for your grenade, super, and melee. Before Shadowkeep, your grenade, your base cooldown, was about 1 minute and 22 seconds for just to recharge your grenade with no mods equipped or anything like that. So you bop in the game and it's 1 minute and 22 seconds. It's a very long time. But in Shadowkeep, now that value has been assigned to tier 3 discipline, which means that if you have, tier 1, tier 2, or tier 0, it's going to be even further from that. Maybe going to like 1 minute and 30 seconds, 1 minute and 35 seconds, maybe 1 minute 40 seconds. And that's happening with super and your melee. So super is quite possibly the biggest offender. So I have 2 intellect here, and right now that means I get my super back in 5 minutes and 43 seconds. And keep in mind that it's 5 minutes before Shadowkeep without any super mods. So 43 seconds for one basically intellect tier is quite frankly ridiculous. And it goes even further than that if you go lower than 2. So that's, I don't know, it's just, I haven't seen anyone talking about it, but it's something I just wanted to point out. The second nerf I wanted to talk about was specifically with the mods in general. The grenade mod, let's see here, or ordnance mods as it was called before, basically gives you 10 discipline. Well, the thing is, previously in Season of Opulence, if you had 5 ordnance mods, that was the maximum cooldown reduction you can get. It's around like 35 seconds or so. Now, that 35-second threshold is achieved with 100 discipline. So even if you had 5 ordnance mods, you'd only get 50 discipline from it. From and whatever you have on your armor. But it's just, they basically cut the power of the mod in half. Okay. And that applies to super mods and also melee mods as well. So it's very jarring for player power to be reduced to this extent, but that doesn't even stop there. Okay, so in Shadowkeep, a lot of the new armor has armor 2.0 and has a bunch of stats on it, and you can see here I have a bunch of old armor from 1.0, I guess you can call it, and you can see that the stat values have mostly been transferred over. So what I mean by this is that, let me take a look at some basic armor without a mod on it. Alright, let's take a look at this. This Reverie Dawn plate had, before the update, had 2 mobility and 1 resilience. That has been transferred over to 20 mobility and 10 resilience, which is basically the same thing. However, when you go into the actual armor itself, you'll notice that I have one recovery here. That one recovery was a whole stat point, but now it's reduced to actually just 1 in the context of 100 instead of in the context of 10. So I can change this 1, but I mean it means nothing. You know, they basically nerfed this little selection tool, this nerf of the points, by 10, and that's on every piece of armor. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of armor that you basically lose on transitioning to Shadowkeep. And I mean, one means nothing in this context of 100, so I'm unsure why that transition was necessary, but it basically means that your stat rolls on your armor from previous seasons, all the gear that you've grinded for up till now, has been basically just useless. So you see, my total's 46. That's a very low base value for something like that. So you have here, this is a piece of armor that I have. It's 54. It's roughly the same. So if it had that +9 that it should have. Another thing I want to talk about specifically in regards to this kind of weird, this weird transitioning from 1 to 10 that's not taking effect is exotic armor. So every piece of exotic armor that you've ever obtained with random rolls has been completely destroyed. So we'll take a look at well, let's just leave it with this one. So this piece of armor has 1 ordnance mod, so that means it's getting +10 discipline. So that's why it has 15 there. It normally would just give you +5. So what that means is that this base helmet is giving you 23 points. And that is just ridiculous. So like the collections roll for the one-eyed mask is, you know, a very poor roll as per Bungie, saying that all the exotic rolls are going to be low stat rolled, and this is 48. You can see the difference here. 48 compared to 23 base value. So why are all my stat values so low? Well, if you take a look at my mobility, resilience, and recovery, these are all 1 point in the previous stat system, and when they transferred over, they should have been converted to 10. That would have the same effect, but they did not. It's just +1. I don't understand why Bungie is purposely devaluing all of our exotics that we grinded hard for, just to, you know, pressure on us to move into the new system, when they clearly stated multiple times that players would be able to use their old gear in conjunction with the new armor and just be able to transfer over, you know, when they feel comfortable. But that's just not the case here. It's just you're at a disadvantage inherently, even if you just transfer over to the freaking collections roll, which is, you know, whatever. So it's very disappointing to me, just seeing all these perks being invalidated. Here, traction used to give you +1 mobility visibly. You can see right here, it gives me 22, and then when I switch off of it, it gives me 21. So it just gives me +1, when in the new stat system it should be +10, but it doesn't. So it's like, why? I mean, they knew they were transferring from 1 to 10 for the stat values, and it's just like they completely ignored all the previous armor, and I'm not sure why. And it really makes me feel a lot weaker playing the game and playing Crucible, because you know, like I said before, you know, I had 10 mobility. I always run 10 mobility. It's just because I like moving fast. And now I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mobility mods, and I'm still unable to get 10 mobility. because of all my stat rolls are pretty poor for, you know, Armor 1.0. Not to mention, you know, all this investment, and look at my other stats. Yeah, I got 2 resilience, 1 recovery, 2 discipline, 2 intellect, and 2 strength. Keep in mind, every stat value below 30 is just a lower than the base value of the previous game without any mods applied. So basically every stat here is nerfed on my character, and it just makes me sad. So that's all I wanted to talk about. I don't know why they chose this way. They really should at least adjust the exotics, because they're, you know, the stat values on them are grossly lowered. And, you know, the 1 point that you get from the switchables, I think, should be changed to give you 10. And I don't know, the base nerfs, obviously they that was a calculated decision, but I don't know, everything feels very half-hearted, and I don't want to say lazy, but and I don't know, it just seems very weird to me as a programmer that they wouldn't see this coming, where you know, if they're transferring from a 10 to 100 value system, they should increment all the 1 values to 10. It just seems very strange to me. But that's all I wanted to talk about. Sorry for taking up too much of your time, and thanks for listening.